Attention, all personnel. Protocol 13 is now in effect. Repeat, Protocol 13 is in effect.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special surprise edition of Protocol 13. I'm going to call this like episode 2.5. This is like not an official episode day. And I am joined once again by Logan. Say hello to the good people.
Hello. Does this make it our holiday special episode?
No, we're not going to. No.
Am I off the podcast because I said that?
You might be. You can join Weird Luke in the halls of No One Wants to Remember It.
Luke.
But we are here for a very special Star Wars Day edition of Protocol 13. We couldn't miss out celebrating the galaxy that we love oh so much. And to prove how much we love it, today we're going to be really talking about some of our favorite things about Star Wars. We're going to be talking movies. We're going to be talking shows. We're going to be talking books, figures, concept, you name it. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to tell you what our favorite hair on Chewbacca's back is at some point today, because that's how much we love. Well, I'm not going to tell you anything I love about Chewbacca because I don't like Wookiees. That's the Imperial side of me. I know Logan is going to tell you how much he loves Celestians.
Oh my god. After seeing Return of the Jedi today, I forgot how stupid Nine Numb's laugh is. I hate it. I hate it so much.
That's
And, like,
so culturally insensitive for a second.
What would you
but
say?
You know?
It's culturally insensitive to Celestians, which I will gladly
can't
take.
Hate on Celestians. They are a very crucial part of the rebellion. Okay.
They ain't got nothing on the
Mount
Calamari.
No, I know you love Celestians. I know.
I
I know. In the first Battlefront, you probably love playing on Sullust more than anybody.
I hated that map. I hated the skin. I hated the character. You know what? Happy May the 4th. Let's talk about the things we hate about Star Wars today, apparently.
Well, if we're gonna start there, then I hate Ithorians. End of story. No, I don't hate Ithorians. I hate that one Jedi Ithorian because I don't. To me, okay. We're just gonna start this. Okay, we're actually about to start about the stuff we hate.
Doc Ondar is an amazing character.
Man, okay, I don't hate Doc Ondar. I don't hate Ithorians. Let me reframe it. I hate that Jedi Ithorian from Star Wars Clone Wars. Because to me, it's everybody talks about that moment like it's this big cool thing. And I'm like
the one that was saving Palpatine?
And the one who like just did like the biggest air blow ever. And I was like, that's not cool to me. Like, of all the force abilities, I'm like, yeah, let me blow air stronger. Like, no.
Okay, so hold on. We're okay with giving. Well, to be fair, since we're talking legends, let's talk more legends. We're okay with giving Plo Koon Force Lightning, but the good kind. But breathing really heavily is where we draw the line.
Okay, at least Force Lightning. Okay, but like Plo Koon's Force Lightning was like a special type of Force Lightning. Like it wasn't lethal. You know, it was understandable and it looked cool. So I'm gonna give it points because of that.
What lightning isn't lethal?
The Jedi lightning, okay?
The Jedi light. Okay,
Jedi
okay, buddy.
Is 100% natural, apparently.
Natural from the fingertips.
And it's golden because why not?
That's true.
And it's not just having a really strong set of lungs, okay? Because by that logic, shouldn't Mephisto be able to just blow air? Shouldn't every Jedi just be like, just ooh, everywhere they go?
Can he breathe underwater?
Yeah, but I think Mephisto can.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah, so he should have he's got a strong set of lungs. Isn't he an aquatic
character?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Strong set of lungs on him. Somewhere. Let's get back into the conversation.
Nautilins are, they have tentacles and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but let's get back on track. Let's talk about what we love. So we're gonna start with movies. Obviously, we have a big list to pick from in terms of picking our top movies. But I'm gonna ask you first, especially since he is just saying, ladies and gentlemen, he's just come back like literally fresh from the movie theater and
Yeah.
seeing Return of the Jedi's return to the theaters. So
Oof.
I'm gonna ask you first. Mostly because I'm interested to see if you're on like that movie theater high of whatever movie you just saw is the best thing ever. So I'm interested. What is your favorite Star Wars film, Logan?
So I gotta say, Return of the Jedi is pretty high right now.
I knew he was gonna be on
It's
that
it's
high.
not, but it's not number one, and here's why. So here's the short story. After doing my pilgrimage to go see Star Wars in theaters, I go to a local department store, a resale store, and this is a normal thing. This is where I look for my Star Wars figures, even Star Wars novels sometimes
You can get some
if
good
it's
catches.
good. Yeah, I'm looking on the at the novels, and there's a huge book behind everything with in all black. I'm like, that's weird. It's obviously sticking out. I go and grab it. It's the Rogue One Visual Dictionary
Oh,
for $6.
oh, that's a catch.
So after riding the high of Return of the Jedi, I was still reminded about how much I love Rogue One.
Rogue One is. I honestly would probably say that's in my top. I could say my top three definitely for just overall Star Wars film.
Hmm.
I think one, Rogue One really set the stage for where we are now. I think, of course, we had the idea of Clone Wars and Rebels being able to tell stories that were outside of the main scope of the Skywalker saga as we know it now.
Hmm.
But Rogue One was like that first real foray into inviting people outside of the shows to
Yeah.
watch Star Wars as not just the Skywalker saga. Because I feel like I said, 'cause by that point, Clone Wars was already like technically done. Season 7 hadn't happened yet, but it probably wasn't happening at that point in a lot of people's book. And then I think Rebels was a season from ending because I think that was like season 3 had just came out, or season 4 was like getting ready to air when Rogue One dropped.
About.
So it was a time period where if you watched the animated side of Star Wars, if you engrossed yourself in all the other stories, that you were niche. And Rogue One was the first time where they were like, let's bring this other side of Star Wars to the rest of the audience and see how it works. And it worked. I mean, character wise, that cast was amazing.
They were so good. Like I can't think of better actors and actresses to possibly play
Like Felicity
these
Jones
characters.
as
Felicity
Jin.
Jones was amazing. Uh
That's Lars Mikkelsen as Galen Erso.
Lars Mikkelsen as Galen Erso, the first Mikkelsen to be in live action.
And
Foreshadowing.
I just want to side note, I'm hoping that at some point someone just in universe kind of just says, it could be in a book or whatever, just says, hey, does Thrawn look like Galen Erso to you?
Exactly.
They have a very similar face structure. You ever notice that, guys?
That would be such a funny conversation to have, especially with
Oh my god, imagine if Thrawn
amongst
knew
the
Galen.
troopers or something. They've had to cross paths at least once.
Because Thrawn was there when the Death Star was being constructed. As we saw in Rebels, even though he was opposed to it, he was there. I don't know if he actually ever got to see the Death Star though.
I don't believe so.
But he's been tied to it. I'm actually in the Thrawn novel that I'm currently on. And I always drop that apparently. Um, he's he's actually assisting Krennic in protecting, or like, what's the way to put it? So this is a serious sidebar. But Krennic has been basically challenged by Governor. But okay, I'll set the scene. Thrawn and Krennic, they both have secret projects in the Empire. Thrawn has a TIE Defender program, and Krennic has the end all be all. He has a Death Star. And as we saw in Rebels, the TIE Defender program was getting some traction. A lot of people in the Empire were like, "Yeah, this is actually a pretty good idea." And a lot of people in the Empire, when it came to Krennic and Stardust, because a lot of people didn't know that. So when I say a lot of people, I really only mean like a handful of people. They were like, you're running into some hiccups. You want more money to handle it. and you're suggesting taking away from the TIE Defender program. And so Tarkin, who already despises Krennic, is at this point like, I'm just gonna use Thrawn because I know Thrawn is gonna just kick it out of the park, or that's like the worst sports expression ever. Hit it out of the park with this situation. So he basically uses Thrawn to get at Krennic, and Krennic and Thrawn are having a little rivalry. It's a lot going on. But we're gonna go back onto the point of Rogue One. One thing I will say about Rogue One that I personally want to see more: Cheered Way and Baze Malbus.
Yeah.
I
I would love some type of like maybe even like a Disney Plus series, you know, as just of the Guardians of the Wills. I feel like that'd be good.
Because imagine if like there was part of me that was like, what if I see them in Survivor?
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my god. Because as we know, we go to Jeddah. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen much of this film. But like, what if we go to Jeddah and we get to see that, because we see the anchorites, who I think were mentioned, and I think there's a chance you might have even saw them.
You definitely saw one or two in the kind of cantina-esque scene of just showing how weird the galaxy is when they're walking through the streets of Jeddah.
I think we did see an anchorite, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so and I don't know how into Jeddah you get. Like, I don't know if you're able to go to the city or something like that.
So
I hope you are.
I don't think you can go to Jeddah, because I've explored quite a bit of Jeddah by the time I'm in my current playthrough of Survivor. I don't think we can go to Jeddah City, which is I was kind of like, oh man, I wish I could, but I kind of get, we've already seen it, so it's kind of like one of those things of like, let's do something new. But again, throwing it back to the main topic of conversation with with all this going on with Rogue One, I will mention one thing. I can't be remiss because I don't know if you remember it, but the actor that played Baze Malbus, when I mentioned him, I thought about it. It was hilarious.
I know exactly what you're about to mention.
When he ended up spoiling it at Celebration that year that he died. Because he I think he didn't spoil that everybody died, but he spoiled that Chirrut died. I think they were talking about something along the lines of like what was their favorite thing that about playing their character or something like that. Like that kind of generic question of like, what was it like doing this? And he jokingly said, pointing to Donnie Yen, who of course plays Chirrut Way, pointed at Donnie Yen, oh, when this guy dies, you got to see what I do. And I remember the hush that came over that crowd of like, what did he just say? Because I feel like the big question heading into Rogue One was like, do they die? And we found that out like even while they were filming or rewriting the movie. That was a big question they were tossing around, was, do they die?
Yeah.
I think, who was it? I think it was Filoni or maybe even Pablo Hidalgo. They were talking about Rogue One, and I think they said at some point they had the original script where he actually did have them surviving, and they mentioned that Kathleen Kennedy read it and was like, shouldn't they die? Kind of deal. So
I kind of like that change though. I like the shouldn't they die?
Yeah.
It's its own contained story. You know, you don't have to wait for a sequel or something. Obviously, you can do prequels with how we have Andor now. But I really do like that it's a like from beginning to end. That's just its own movie, and that it was the first Star Wars movie to be like that.
It was a true spinoff. It was a true spinoff. It was like, you have this great story, and it's like, it's almost like a what if in Marvel, where it's like you take this one little bit of information and you spin it into something even bigger. And I know a lot of people were like apprehensive about it when it first came out. It's like, oh, we already know how they got the plans, because I feel like a lot of people hung on to like the Legends explanation, but truthfully, the Legends explanation was murky. I mean, it was because I think if I remember, the Legends explanation is like they got bits and pieces of the plan from like a bunch of different locations. So like there was like one mission where they got it, and there was like another mission where they got some of because of Star Killer, and there's like another mission where they got it because of a prison break on the Death Star, which was we saw in the first Battlefront campaign. So it was like all these like ideas of like how they got the plans, and it's what's the way to describe it? I mean, it's cool when you explore one of those ways, because then you can do something with it. But overall, you want to have one solid way of how it happened, and
Yeah.
you want it to mean something too. You don't want it to be something where it can be changed later, as it kept happening with Legend. You know, you don't want it to be the Shock T's death sort of situation where it just keeps happening over and over, and you're just like, okay, now this is it. Like you want to have something be like the nail in the coffin, so to speak, of like, yeah, this is what actually happened with taking the plans for the Death Star, and having Rogue One be that way. And not only that, but let's also talk about how important Rogue One is when it comes to animated characters showing up in live action, because Saw Gerrera was the first one. We give a lot of don't get me wrong, we give a lot of flowers to Ahsoka making her debut. That was big. We gave a lot of flowers to Zeb Orrelios when he finally showed up in Rebels. In Mandalorian season 3, which I wanted people to talk about more. But
I wish they did, but I just don't think a lot of people caught on to it.
I know. I had it was just a cameo. Like, why couldn't he be there a lot more? But Saw did it first. Saw was the first animated character to show up in live action, and it was Forrest Whitaker, for crying out loud. Like, come on, guys.
Exactly. Like it's this amazing actor playing somebody that the only thing we get is, like, I think at that point maybe 6, 7, 8 episodes of Clone Wars.
Yeah. So
not a lot, you know.
He hadn't even shown up in Rebels at that point yet either.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like they really took the most random character they could and just said, let's thrust him into the big screen. Let's crack that glass ceiling. And I feel like we don't credit Rogue One for just being such a groundbreaking thing in terms of like seeing Star Wars how we are now. Like, basically the old adage of like something crawled so this could run. That's what Rogue One crawled so Mandalorian could run. So
exactly.
Ahsoka could sprint. So I feel like saying Rogue One is your favorite movie and one of my top 3 is well added. And if you guys listening, if Rogue One is high on your list, I applaud you. We all applaud you.
Honestly, it's a first of its kind to be a different Star Wars movie. It's a different to not be so reliant on the Force. Obviously, they have aspects of the Force, but it doesn't lean on it so hardly. And it's just a straight up gritty war movie that I really like. Like my first time watching it, I did not know how things were gonna go down. Like I was
really predicted, because like
exactly,
you had so many elements at play, and then all the characters were they were so different but still blended so well. Because you have Jin, who's the runaway that doesn't really have a home. And, it doesn't look like she even wants a home, kind of deal. And then you have Cassian. Like, literally, I remember I was rewatching Rogue One the other day, just because I wanted to watch it. And when you first see Cassian, you see this rebel. And it was also, you want to note, it was the first movie where you see the rebellion as not the shining heroes of the galaxy. They did some shady things.
That one opening scene with Cassian did so much on people's view on the rebels.
Like, he killed a fellow spy because that spy couldn't run. And that's crazy to me, because you always see like the heroic side of Rebels where like no one gets left behind, we got to do this. And then all of a sudden Cassian flips that on his head and shoots this other rebel. But then not only that, but like one of the things I didn't even really like realize was when I think it was General Draven, when they bring Jin into the base and they're going over what's going to happen and telling her, like, we know you're the daughter of Galen Erso, and we need to find out where he is. And Mon Mothma is there, and obviously, and we know Bail Organa's there too. Which, by the way, when I don't know if you've seen it in a while, but like the scene where Bail Organa walks into the meeting, chills. I was like, oh my god, it's like
Oh yeah.
Jimmy Smits has a presence about him that is just undeniable. But
Mm-hmm.
when he walks in, and then there's the fact that he didn't even say anything when he walked in. It was just kind of that thing of like, if you know that that's Bail Organa, and you know what's about to happen to him, and you're like, oh gosh. But dang, Jimmy Smits is good. But so they all say this thing, and Mon Mothma tells them, get Galen's Urso here, and her plan was she was gonna get Galen Urso to testify before the Senate, because in the Star Wars timeline here, the Senate has not been abolished yet, so there still is quote unquote a galactic Senate, and her plan was to get Galen Urso to testify before the Senate to tell them that the Empire is building the Death Star, because at this point also the galaxy has no clue that the Empire is, well, it's like one of those things where like officially they have no clue the Empire is making a plan to kill her, but obviously you have leaks and dissidents and things like that.
Yeah.
But as soon as they leave that meeting, Draven pulls Cassian to the side. Like, Jyn Erso is like literally steps away from them at this point. And he's like, to forget what Mon Mothma said. If you see that man, kill him. And I'm sitting here like, I don't remember this, because that was like, it's an undercover assassination mission. You just told Cassian Andor to just forget what Mon Mothma said, which by this point, especially now with all that we've seen Mon Mothma in, we know she is like probably second to Leia in strong characters in the rebellion that fight
most
without
definitely
fighting. And she just said, you forget what she says. If you see him, kill him. Even if I'm like, first off, that means this rebel, and they're spies, but this rebel spy said, go find this girl. Use her to find her father. And then use her to kill her father. And that's a rebellion. That's not an Imperial tactic. That's a rebellion tactic at this point. That's crazy to me. That's why another reason I'm like, Rogue One is just a Star Wars movie on another level when it came to just shattering what we knew Star Wars could do at that point. I think that's the best way to put it. Rogue One really set the bar.
Quick side note. So I pulled up the Rogue One cast. Just that's what I do whenever I talk about movies. I pull up the cast and stuff. Looking through the cast, Sam Witwer,
yes,
was in it. Apparently, this is new to me.
So Sam Witwer. Sam Witwer is kind of like the Stan Lee of voice cameos. So basically, if you look through I would say almost every Star Wars, not even movie, just like product that has come out. If I'm not mistaken, Witwer has had some kind of credit where usually you will see he's just like additional voices. So like sometimes he'll be a stormtrooper, sometimes he'll be just like a random alien. Like Witwer is like almost always in a project. So
it says at least this one random guy on Reddit says, so we can trust him. It says that he's the guy that yells out open fire. I don't know when, because it's a war movie, so they say a lot of open fires, but
like it's weird. Speaking of, did you ever see the Reddit post that trended a while back? It was like, I'm the guy who said, just let the girl speak.
Yeah. Thank you, unnamed voice number 52. Thank you so much, because you without you, they wouldn't have let the girl speak, and
you did your job. All right. Without that, you want to talk about butterfly effect. Imagine if he never would have said, let the girl speak. Everybody would have been talking over her. We would have never gone to Scarif, and Yavin would probably be just another pile of rocks like Alderaan.
Exactly.
So if anybody's the real hero.
I also want to say, I'm not so sure if you're familiar with the term glup, and I'm not going to say the other word because I don't know how we do on cursing with this on this podcast. But it's just glup.
Just say it. I'll censor it.
Okay, glup shitto. Basically, people that are listening will know just by me saying glup. Basically, it's a background character that has almost no story whatsoever, no they do nothing for the story other than just they show up once and that's it. And
He's the Glup.
no.
Who's the Glup? Or is Glup an actual person?
My
or is this not
no,
like
no, Glup was started because of a story of someone was making fun of Star Wars fans being like, "Oh my god, there's a new episode of Mandalorian out and in the background you can see my favorite character. It's Glup Shitta
so
who
it's
appeared
it's
in
like the idea of like, oh, you can like they're just throwing random people in the background and you just assume that it's like this person.
Yeah.
It's dependent
My
on
favorite.
person.
Exactly. It's like Ponda Baba. A lot of
Darker
people's is the dancer from Jabba's Palace in Return of the Jedi. My favorite is played by Warwick Davis. His name is what I'm gonna butcher it. Watif QB. And let me make sure it's this guy. Yeah. So when Saw's partitions first attack on Jeddah, Wow Jin, and he's the little guy with the minigun.
Yeah, I remember that.
That just peeks over and starts randomly shooting and laughing.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
that guy
seeing the BTS for that. Yeah,
exact that guy, and then also the guy on Scarif that says something that he says Carapace when the AT-AT shows up.
He does,
but
yeah.
But it doesn't sound like that. Like it doesn't sound. I don't know what it sounds like he says. But
because I will tell you the way I found that out. What was it? There's actually a video on Star Wars' YouTube page where it's like I think it was D Goots, Pablo Hidalgo, and that other guy I can never remember his name, but he's like the guy that's like always wearing like a like a hoodie. He looks like he works at Lucasfilm, but
is he the blonde guy?
No, he's like he looks kind of skinny. He's like the one guy who works at Lucasfilm that like looks like he doesn't work at Lucasfilm. He like I'm gonna like lose my mind trying to figure out who this guy is.
Alan Tudyk.
It's not Alan Tudyk. Which by the way, I hope he comes in soon. Hold up. I'm just gonna look up this video because it's going to irk me. And oh my god, I don't even know if they still have the video up on YouTube.
I don't even know what to look up to help you. So,
because like I just typed in Star Wars Rogue One, and I realized that was just not a good thing to search.
It's gonna be a little bit.
So I was like, oh, what? Because like in my head, I was like, what if I just like, you know what? I'm gonna search the Star Wars YouTube channel. I think I can do that. Oh no, I just clicked the Ahsoka trailer. Let's see. Can I search the channel on my phone? No, I can't.
No.
Oh wait, maybe they have like a Rogue One playlist that they just auto added it to. Let me find. Okay. They do. Okay, designing Rogue One, becoming Booty, but Bodhi, not Booty. No, it's not in the playlist. Wait, it might be. No, okay, that's the panel. It's not. No, here it is. There it is. Rogue One Secrets Explained. I just found it. Rogue One Secrets Explained. Woo. Okay, I'm gonna turn that down though.
That's definitely not that.
Okay, I'm gonna get this man's name. Okay, yeah, so it was D Goots. And then who else was here? I know Pablo was there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 3 people she was interviewing, if I remember correctly.
Matt Martin.
Yep, him.
Thank you, IMDb.
That was him. But yeah, it was him. I think they were, and there was one more guy there. I can't remember. I just looked. I should have got his name, but I didn't. But
Leland Chi.
Might have been actually. Was it actually him?
Yeah, Andy Gutierrez hosts a special interview with Leland Chi, Pablo Hidalgo, and Matt Martin of the Lucasfilm Story Group.
Yep, that's them. So they were talking about it, and then because like basically the whole thing is like them just looking at the little secrets of Rogue One, and they mentioned that that guy does yell Carabas. That's how I found it out. That guy does in fact yell Carabas,
which in the eyesight of an AT-AT, I would also be. Oh, sorry, AT-AT.
Correct.
The one with the weird hole in the middle. I would also be yelling Karabast.
I've been yelling Carabas at the sight of anything Imperial, and like in my head, I don't think anyone else is coming. Cause like I realized at that point, all the rebels on the crown, that to them they're it. Like they don't know that the
that's
other
true.
fleet is coming at this point. So it's like, yeah, we're probably gonna die here, which they did. Like keep in mind, we talk about Jin and Cassian and all them, but like every rebel that went down the Scarif, none of them came out of there alive.
Mm-mm.
So it's like that's an entire like squadron of people that are all they all knew they were probably gonna die, but went anyway. And that's why Rogue One is highly touted as probably one of the more heroic groups in the rebellion. Because they knew, yeah, we're probably gonna die. The chances of us making out of this mission alive are like 1%, and that's being nice.
That's being nice. That's rounding up.
Being nice, because like you're going to a secret Imperial installation that is tied to the most secret Imperial project in the history of the Empire. Probably more secret than anything that's ever happened in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And like everything about this planet is Imperial. Every person, there's not a single thing on this planet that is living for its own purpose. Everything here is for the Empire. And they said, let's steal a cargo shuttle. Let's hope that they don't shoot it. Let's land. We're all dressed up as different Imperials. I think Cassian was an officer. Jin was like a runway agent, and all these. And then K2 just had to walk like he. I like how K2 just like looking at the other security doors, just like, why are they walking like that? But
exactly.
But all this stuff and they were like, yeah, let's steal the plans for the Death Star. I don't know how they thought they were gonna get out of there. I don't know what their original plan was. If the fighting didn't start, it was just like we land and then we leave. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it, and we appreciate them for it. So, at the end of the day, thank you, Rogue One, and thank you for being a phenomenal movie. I think I just turned into thank you letters by Jimmy Fallon.
Oh my god. Well, speaking of Jimmy Fallon, I know you've watched Jimmy Fallon at least once. And now I want to talk about your favorite movie.
My favorite
Star
movie.
Wars. Yeah, that pivot was horrible, but I'm known for it, so let's keep it. Well, but I want to talk about what your favorite movie is, because you say Rogue One's up there.
Rogue One's up there, but forever, and I feel like a lot of people are gonna say this as well, but it's for good purpose. It's definitely going to be. I'm just gonna say my top 3 right now, but I'm gonna tell you what number 1 is. Number 3 is Rogue One.
Easy.
Number 2 is The Last Jedi. Some people might hate on me for that, but
cake.
Get out of my face. Number 1 is Empire Strikes Back.
There we go.
Because Empire Strikes Back is, as Carrie Fisher put it, it's the spiritual Star Wars. And it's not wrong. It's because if you really look at really every single Star Wars movie that has come out since then, I don't think there's been a movie that had less fighting than Empire.
That's true.
Because Empire started out with the Battle of Hoth, and it was kind of like the idea of like we're gonna get the big action sequence out of the way. And so Hoth happens, and then the rest of that movie is there's no war, there's no more fighting, no more big, large scale action sequences. If something does happen, it's confined to a little area. And really then, like, the only other big moments of action in that movie were, like, the asteroid scene, the asteroid chase scene with the Falcon and the TIE fighters. And then you had Vader and Luke fighting. Other than that, and then, of course, you had the little chase sequence with Boba, but that wasn't really fighting. It was more just, like, warning shots, like, get back, those kind of shots. But other than that, there was no fighting and no grandiose scale fight in Empire Strikes Back. Which for me, I was like, the fact that it kept you enthralled like that, because it was just so much storytelling being told. Like, sure, we talk about Vader and Luke, but like, let's look at what was happening with Leia and Han. Let's look at what's happening with the budding relationship between them, because really you see them start to fall in love in that movie. Like, that's the movie where their love started, because we talk about, like, you can kind of see it in 4, And yeah, there's moments where, but it's more like playful flirting in 4. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you can see them getting together, but like at that point, anything could have happened. But
it's the
5,
hints,
yeah,
not the actual meat.
exactly. And then 5, you get into it, and it's like, yeah, you can see the relationship starting to sprout. You can tell that there's this push and pull between the two of them that's slowly becoming just more of the pull. And what
Mm-hmm.
I love is, seeing them at Hoth, and no pun intended, seeing how cold they are with each other because they want the other person to, show that affection. They both, but I think their personalities are so different that they treat love differently. So Han is the egotistical person, so
Mm-hmm.
he wants to make the first move, but I think in his head, him making Leia make the first move is him making the first move. So he tries to force it.
It's they both want to win. Yeah, they both want to win in the relationship because they're. I
That's
mean,
just their
one's
personality.
one's a politician, one's a charismatic smuggler. I mean, they want to win each other in wits in two totally different ways
And
by not having to confess. And
it's really a beautiful thing. So like when you get to the build up of when Leia says I love you and Han says I know,
mm-hmm,
like for me that hit with the same level of emotion that hearing Vader say I'm your father for me. Cuz
it did.
it's like two big revelations that were on two different sides of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm,
Because you have Leia, whose journey with Han throughout that whole movie is something, but then it's also like a huge contrast with Luke, because it's a contrast and it's similar. Because keep in mind, like the journey these two are on, Luke's on a journey eventually, as we see in Return of the Jedi, to get his father back. Obviously, he doesn't.
mm-hmm.
He's not on that journey because he doesn't know yet. But it's family, and I feel like that's the core value in all of Star Wars is family. So you have Leia and Han slowly starting to get together. You have the Vader and Luke situations building into Return of the Jedi with
Mm-hmm.
Luke trying to get his family together. So the themes of family are really budding in Star Wars, and I feel like what we see in Empire just like shoots that to another level. So it can't be overlooked, the journey that Leia took in Empire. But even beyond just the story, the aesthetic and the look of 5, I feel like was just different. Like Bespin, I feel like is probably the top tier design I've seen for a location of all the Star Wars.
It's so royal. Like that's the only
The
way I can
the
describe it. It's
color
so
palette,
royal.
that orangey gold color palette that it had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the design, like I remember the shots of like when they're coming into the city and the way the clouds and it's the golden cloud look, and you have the
Mm-hmm.
cloud cars zooming in, and the sounds that Bestman had. I could listen to like a 1 hour loop of the sounds of Bestman because like the cloud cars, it's just something so relaxing about that zooming sound they have when they fly
Mm-hmm.
by. It just was aesthetically pleasing to see Bespin, to see Cloud City, and be able to ever see it. Like I remember when the Bespin pack came out in Battlefront, I was like, dude, there's no underestimating how beautiful this setting is. And 5 delivered a look that just no other movie had. Like even in there, even when you talk just with the original trilogy, 5 just looked different. I feel like 4 and 6 looked similar. If that makes sense. And I feel like that's because
A little
they
bit.
had similar settings. Because both movies had Tatooine. Both movies ended up on an Imperial installation of the Death Star. So it's both of them had similar settings. But
Mm-hmm.
5 was that movie where they were like, let's go different places. Let's go to Dagobah. Let's go to Bespin. Let's go to a rock in the middle of space. Let's go to an Imperial cruiser. Let's show different
Mm-hmm.
locations. And I loved it for that. Like I could go on and on about how much I love 5, and it's just so good. Like I can't stress it enough. The court, like the fight, like don't get me wrong, Vader and Luke in 6, great fight. But there's something about
Mm-hmm.
the fight between Vader and Luke in 5 that just feels way more raw, and it's not even just excluding the reveal at the end. Like one of the things I always think about is the scene where just before they fly out the window, and Vader angles his saber down, and he starts just flinging things at Luke, and you see Luke just doing like those desperation swings, just like, and it's for me, it's like that moment, like it lets you know that Luke himself knew he wasn't ready, and he was just trying to do whatever he could just to stand up against Vader. I feel like that was also one of the only times in the original trilogy where you really see how strong Vader is. Like, sure, they couldn't do it on a grandiose scale like we saw in Rogue One, because CGI and filming and stunts weren't on that level yet. But that moment where you just see Luke just swinging aimlessly, it's because he just doesn't know what else to do. He's facing up against a Dark Lord who's showing powers that he's never had to face before. Because even when you talk about new canon, where like we know they fought once before Episode 5, it wasn't like that. It was Luke wasn't by himself. He had other people there to help him. That was his first one-on-one encounter with Darth Vader. I mean, he's really seeing all that this man can do. But it's also interesting when you look at that fight and you talk about the reveal. It makes you see that technically Vader's holding back. It's because he's not there to kill Luke. He's there just to submit him, basically. So
he's trying to win him over.
Exactly. So you see everything he's doing to Luke, and it feels like if you look back at that fight, you can kind of see that Vader is fighting defensively, which is a rare thing for him. Like for instance, take into account when the fight first started, when it's still in the carbonite freezing chambers, and there's that one moment where Luke is just like stepping towards Vader a lot. If I was older Vader, Vader would have been striking him right then and there, but he's not. He's reserving himself. I have like those little bits, just that little hint that Vader is reserving. He's not trying to actively fight and defeat his son in this moment.
Having the good guys lose is such an amazing story point. Like there's not really a lot of, but before the movie came out, there wasn't really a lot of stories like that where the good guys lose, and it's actually like it actually has you thinking like, oh my god, like in this third movie, is it like, can they win? Like
Exactly.
They show how powerful the Empire was in just the first 20 minutes of the movie, not even,
like you had the heroes running as soon as the movie starts, that's
exactly
something. That's because we see even now, we see the trope of villains winning more, but Empire started that trend. Like you might have had a few here and there where before Empire where the villain didn't win, or the villain won out. But matter of fact, I don't think you really saw the villain truly winning. And I feel like 5, and even when you look past that, like you look at 3, when at the time period when Episode 3 came out, villains winning on like just straight up winning was not really the thing people did.
It wasn't.
So for 3 to end on such a tone, and also if you ask me, 3 and 5 just tonally also feel very similar, which I feel like is an interesting note too for me, because it's both those movies where darkness is winning, but they both end with like those hopeful shots.
There's not a lot of action in either, really.
Really, because when you think about 3, I don't know about 3. I think 3.
All the action in 3 is kind of towards the end.
Yeah, true.
Like it's in that last window. Yeah. You have the battle, of course, on the beginning, and then really kind of from Utapau to the end of the movie. That's about it.
The action, yeah.
There's a lot of politics in there, which I like.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe Star Wars needs to just have like a 24-hour C-SPAN-esque network where we just watch The Senate at play during random points of history in the Star Wars universe.
That would be so cool. I would pay for that.
We can see Masa
Like
Medina.
honestly, StarWars.com could do that and just have just make like 24 hours of it and then just have it
Just run
constantly
it
on loop. Yeah,
every day.
that'd
We
be
echo to Masamita just saying, "The electric court is in session."
God.
But
I don't even know if I want that.
yeah, you do.
I do. You're right.
But we want to talk about. We've talked about our favorite movies. But
Mhm.
now we need to expand the conversation. I want to talk about. Let's actually talk about shows. I think we before we started, we were just debating where to put shows in this conversation. Let's put it right here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of shows to dig through. We got live action. We have animated. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite show that we've gotten so far?
I'm a cut to the chase. All right, buddy. We've had 2 episodes of this podcast so far.
Yeah.
Anybody consistently listening, if me or you say anything other than Rebels,
It's a lie.
we
This is
look
all
like
a lie.
freaks.
We
We
literally
look like
the logo is literally the Star Wars Rebels logo, guys. Like
Protocol 13 shows up in Star Wars Rebels.
the audio for the intro was from Star Wars Rebels. Okay. Like,
we literally already mentioned Star Wars Rebels. I'm pretty sure 2 different times in this podcast alone.
this
Like,
discussion
so far.
would have no weight if we did not say Star Wars Rebels is our favorite show.
So let's
Okay.
get it out of the way. Let's talk about Star Wars Rebels for a quick speedball, and then we can talk about the other things because, dude, Star Wars Rebels is amazing. It's a quick 4 seasons. At the beginning, I'll be honest. At the beginning, I'm like, I don't know.
Because
It's a little.
it's like Clone
It
Wars at the
drags.
beginning, where it was like you realize this is a show on the kids network,
Mm-hmm.
but then the kids leave the room, and then the parents come in. And then
Exactly.
you have the stories that you get to. But I feel here's my big thing when it comes to Clone Wars versus Rebels, because I
Mhm.
will say I've said it. I've said it a bunch of times. Rebels, I head and shoulders would recommend Rebels over Clone Wars, and the reason
Oh, yeah.
being is because with Clone Wars, it's a great show. Do not get me wrong; they tell great stories. But one of the things I feel like people kind of don't necessarily talk about is a lot of the stories that we know and love from Clone Wars, they weren't the centerpiece. We talk about Ahsoka leaving. That was not a centerpiece story. That was a story that kind of like took over like one season. But as soon as it was over,
Mhm.
we went to the next arc. Like, and there were multiple arcs in the season. So it's a thing of, and then there were a lot of filler episodes that because it's such a wide scoping show, you could go from having this cohesive set of episodes, right? And then the next episode, you got Jar Jar and Mace Windu going around and solving a murder plot or something.
Exactly.
So it's this thing of Clone Wars is a great show, but in terms of storytelling, it bounces a lot. And it's not a necessarily bad thing because it worked for that show. Because like I said, it was a much larger scope. It was a show that was about the Clone Wars. You have a 3-year period
Mhm.
that featured a lot of different personalities, a lot of different characters, and it gave us some great characters. But Rebels, it was solely focused on the Ghost Crew. It was about their journey. It was about them growing individually, growing together. So you see a lot more personality from everybody who shows up, and you feel a lot more personal. You feel a lot more connected with them because you're seeing their journeys as they happen. You're not. So with Rebels, you're gonna see something, and yeah, they might have a filler episode, but that filler still adds to a character. Because more than likely, it was still going to feature somebody from the Ghost Crew. Like I feel like every episode of Rebels always featured the Ghost Crew to some
Yeah,
degree.
I was trying to think of some episode that didn't feature the Ghost Crew, but the only thing I can somewhat think of is the episode with that kind of is more about Callus, but even then it
Oh yeah,
still
through
has
Imperial Eyes, yeah.
it still has him hunting down the Ghost Crew and he runs in with the Ghost Crew. So it's not
So they're tied. You're still gonna like it was tied in it, but even then, it's like that episode was important because eventually it's the episode that leads into leads into Callus leaving the Empire and joining the rebellion because of the Ghost Crew.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things of, Rebels told a story with that group. We didn't bounce around too much. We didn't, just take you into a whole nother story out of nowhere. And then and then really a lot of the filler episodes in Rebels, a lot of them weren't, just random filler. A lot of them still had substance. You had a few that were random filler. If I can remember off the top of my head, like Chopper and AP5. But you had episodes that still meant something. And also it was fun because they would bring in these other characters and you could bring in legacy characters and it was interesting to see them interact. Like, how cool was it to see the fact that they knew Princess Leia, and it was so cool to see that they worked with Lando before, Lando became, big time administrator Lando, and to see more importantly Ezra linking up with Hondo Ohnaka. That was just great. I don't know if I can call him Ezra. If you reference Ezra and Hondo, I feel like you have to call Ezra Jabba at that point. You can't call him Ezra. You gotta call him Jabba.
You can't. Or Lando. He did say Lando that one time.
He did say that, but the Jabba one sticks.
Oh yeah.
The Jabba one is more insane because it's like he literally said Jabba the Hutt, and you're like, and you would feel like anybody in the criminal sector of the galaxy would be like, no, you're not.
What if Jabba the Hutt's like the John Doe of, like the John Smith of Star
just
Wars?
The basic name everybody has.
Yeah.
It's like Jabba. I saw like 18. What if Jabba the Hutt's real name is not Jabba the Hutt? What if he did the same thing Ezra did? They just say, who am I? I'm Jabba the Hutt.
His real name's actually Greg.
He's like, he just chose Jabba. Sounded cooler. Sounded better. Just went with Jabba. But it's
a facade.
It's just what he does. Everything is built on a lie. All the Hutts, none of them are really the Hutts. It's just like the Hutt is the Smith.
Except for that one from Clone Wars. That dude's definitely a Hutt.
What, Zero?
Yeah, Zero. That dude's definitely a Hutt. God, the Zero impression.
Oh yeah, baby. Zero the Hutt. Man, that was a character. We're not going to talk about him right now.
No, I mean we can't. We're in TV shows.
True, we can't talk about Zero. Man, it's Zero.
Without Zero, we wouldn't have Cad Bane.
That is true. It is weird that Zero the Hutt is the reason Cad Bane existed.
Exactly.
Wow, that just hit me. Okay.
Which, talking about Cad Bane, I want to say, talk about a guy that's been in multiple shows. We've seen him. We haven't seen him as a young bounty hunter, but we've seen him. I would say quite possibly in his prime, even and then a little bit past his prime, and then way past his prime in live action too.
Which blew. Okay, so I don't know if I told you around the time, but I had a feeling when Cad Bane showed up in Book of Boba, I was like, before it happened, I know a lot of people were like, oh, okay, he's probably gonna show up, but I knew it. I was like, he's gonna show up. Because for me, it was so random that he came back in Bad Batch, right? And I was like, why is he here? And then I was like, Book of Boba Fett's coming out. And I was like, they're getting people an introduction to Cad Bane because he's going to be in Book of Boba. They want people to know who he is before he shows up there, just in case they haven't seen Clone Wars. And I was like, holy crap, I was right. A lot of people were right because I feel like it was a thing that a lot of people speculated about. But seeing Cad Bane over that large span of time, and it's kind of cool to me because we know what happened between Cad Bane and Boba because of the unfinished episodes and panels and whatnot. So to see and to not to see his journey in that regard is kind of crazy and it's cool. It's similar to Maul, to see a character grow over multiple mediums. But I will say this while we're on, now that I've brought up Maul, we're talking about shows and movies and whatnot, I feel like Maul deserves one more project. because when I talk about characters that feel complete in Star Wars, this is what I mean. Characters that we know their journey from start to end. Characters that I can put in this list are Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker. We know his journey from start to end. We're getting there with Leia, especially after Kenobi. We have seeing her as a really young child. So we're getting there with Leia, and really, I feel like we've gotten there with Leia because a lot of books covered her during that 30-year period as well. And I feel like that's a canon because I highly doubt we're gonna get a live action Leia ever again. Adult Leia, I should say. But Leia can be included in that category. And then Maul can be included in that category. But I put an asterisk next to Maul. Because until Solo came out, we knew his whole life. Then Solo happened. And now there is one part of his career that I'm like begging to know what happened. And I think you know where I'm going. Is what the heck happened with him and Kira.
I would love to see that.
Because that was probably the craziest cameo during that time period. And it never got built upon. I don't think they touched it in any medium. And I'm like, guys.
There's a small little bit. So, as a avid, well, I won't say comic reader because I collect a lot, but I never read them. But I do know that they in comics they touch on Kira and the Black Sun a little bit. But all it is it's post Empire Strikes Back because they're all hunting for Han Solo.
Yeah.
So that's about all they got, I think.
I need something like not immediately after, but yeah, immediately after that moment, because that's interesting. Because I remember even then, I don't know if you remember it, but I was like, that might be a stretch, might not. So if you remember when season 7 came out, for Clone Wars, and people were wondering who rescued Maul. Just remember he had the gunship show up and he flew away in the gunship. And some people were thinking, could that have been Kira? Could that be what was Paul Bettany's character? Dryden
Voss.
Dryden Voss. People wondering could that have been Dryden Voss or somebody connected to Maul. Because I feel like that's another thing is we don't know who saved Maul. I would love to know that too. Who saved Maul? What happened with Kira? There's little bits now that I'm like, I want to see what happened there with Maul. Like he was a complete story. Then they added stuff, and I'm like, okay, you kind of gotta finish the story.
Yeah, you can't hint at something and then not complete it.
But back on track with our favorite show, Rebels, and let's talk about when Maul showed up and how beautiful it was to see him on the screen again. And to have once again Sam Witwer voicing him with such prowess and such elegance and such rawness.
He gave him the Sam Witwer gave Maul the most famous Maul quote in Rebels, and it's just one word, surprisingly. I would do it, but I don't want to wake up my parents.
But dude, it's just like Kenobi, the story with Maul and Kenobi, having it cap off in Rebels as a Rebels fan, it's just one awesome. But I want to talk about the duel. Let's just talk about that because one, I absolutely love that they did not do what we all expected when that episode was coming. So I feel like everybody was like, "This got to be this huge, over the top battle," and even I'll admit, I was expecting that. And when it happened, there's so much anticipation. Like you have, them taking their ready stances, Obi-Wan, taking his stance. But now looking back on what happened, so if you know what happened, the fight, and I put air quotes around it, ended up being like less than 15 seconds.
Barely. It was literally like 5 swipes.
Yeah, and then Kenobi briefly won. But as they talk about it, the way that so Dave Filoni spoke on why he had it in like that, and it was a thing of they're both they have this rivalry that's spanned that I'm pretty sure a decade at that point. That start really just a rivalry from all because keep in mind at that point Kenobi just for a long time Kenobi didn't give two thoughts to Maul because he thought he was dead like everybody else. So really it was just a one-sided rivalry for such a long time, and sure it reignited during that one period in the Clone Wars where Maul came back and the Shadow Collective he was building to the Shadow Collective. But even after that, Kenobi once again just kind of like he forgot about him. He had no it was just like Maul was just a flicker in the back of his mind. Like he didn't really care about Maul the way Maul cared about him. So
exactly
when the fight happened, that's what you got. You had somebody who was consumed by years and years of hating this one person versus somebody who realizes it's a waste to sit there and just hate for no reason at all, you know. So it's interesting for me to see that's how they had it in, and it's cool because another little small detail they worked in there is I feel like, and also thinking about that I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. Also, seeing how short the duel was is Kenobi when he takes his battle stance. One of the things that you'll kind of notice is when he first takes his first stance, it's the one he did in episode 3 when he was fighting, getting ready to fight Grievous, where he does like the saber over his head and like the hand pointed forward.
The classic Obi-Wan
Exactly.
pose.
And then he switches to the pose he had when he fought Vader in 4. That more basic defense stance. And I was like, oh my god, the storytelling behind that kind of shows you that he's not that old Kenobi anymore. Because that old Kenobi had a pretty good mixture of defensive versus offensive. And Ben Kenobi was pretty much strictly defensive. So seeing him switch like that right before they started fighting, it's a hint that he's not the old Kenobi. And Maul, not only did he use something old, he went way back. He went to when they fought on Naboo for the first time, when he first revealed
episode 1.
And he went for the same move that he used on Qui-Gon on Obi-Wan. So it shows you he didn't change at all. Not only that, but he is fully stuck in the past. That's how much in the past Maul is. He went back to something that happened at that point 10, 15, almost 20 years ago at that point. He went back to that. So there's just a lot of little hints in there. And with Rebels, it was because that show is so personal. You get to see those little moments. Because if that happened in like Clone Wars, I feel like it would have been too grand to pick up little moments like that. Because it would have been wide shots and quick moving action and like I said, it's nothing wrong with that because Clone Wars made it work. Because like I said, like I mentioned earlier, it was a large scale show, so they had to do stuff like that. But Rebels was toned down, and Rebels was personal, so you get a lot more moments where you can look at the small things and say, that makes all of this that much better. So yeah, the love affair for Star Wars Rebels is real for the Logan. Can't be remiss. But also, we gotta move on because I don't want to just labor in Rebels too much. So
Rebels and Rogue One.
Exactly. There's a theme here, guys. If you can't tell what our favorite era is, if you can't tell what you love seeing,
I wonder if this next question's also gonna dip into that era.
Let's switch over to games. Let's talk about Star Wars games. We got a lot of games to pick from. And I'm gonna two-prong this one because I feel like some of these games we can't really put in the same category because of how they played.
Yeah.
So let's talk about single-player story first.
Single-player story?
Which Star Wars game takes the cake for you?
We kind of already mentioned it. I want you to go ahead for it. Because it may not be your... the one I'm thinking of probably isn't going to be your top.
It probably won't be. But I'm gonna say what my top is.
But you go for it. Yeah.
My top favorite is truthfully gonna be the first Force Unleashed game. And I know it was a long time, not canon. But one, there's a lot of reasons why Force Unleashed is still a top tier game for me. One, Sam Witwer, his performance, Star Killer, is probably one of the best performances in Star Wars, hands down for me. The emotion he could get, like whenever he screams, like dear God, it was like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like we think back, we were talking about it the other day because I think you heard me play it over the phone one time. Was the scene where Vader takes all the rebel leaders captive because he lied to Starkiller, and the emotion in that scene and how cool it was, but also because Force Unleashed, for me, it was one of the first Star Wars games I like really played and like really wanted as it was coming out, because when I was getting, so this came out I think 2008, so I would have been turning 8 that year. I think it was, I was turning 8 that year, I think, or turning 9 that year, one of the two. And at that point I had really started understanding, games coming out and pre-ordering stuff and all this kind of thing. So it was the first Star Wars game that I was like, seeing a lot of information about before it even came out, seeing the commercials and going on, old GameSpot websites and looking at, reviews and trailers and stuff. So it was the first one I got to be a part of that. So that's also part of it, but also the story it told made a lot of sense. Because this is one thing I will say, when it comes to Star Wars Legends, even a lot of Star Wars Legends stories didn't make sense when you talk about the timeline it was supposed to be in.
Yeah.
But for Force Unleashed, it was a great story because one, it showed you the birth of the rebellion at that point. And it was cool because, little things like his family crest was the Phoenix, and that became the insignia that the rebels got behind. The idea that, and one of the things I also love is the idea that the Empire, destroyed itself because all the people who would eventually become the rebellion, it was Vader that made Starkiller round them up all together. It was
That's
Vader
true.
that essentially made Starkiller start a rebellion. And that rebellion is what ended the Empire. So the idea that the Empire ended itself inadvertently was also a really cool element. To see the new characters the character they were all new at the point, but to see the characters he met at the time, like Juno Eclipse, she was a badass. Ram Koda, he basically is what inspired a lot of elements of Kanan. So you see a lot of these characters and it's just like, oh, it was such a good game. And when I talk about, like, again with the story, how I told you that a lot of stuff didn't make sense, and I can't be, if I mention Force Unleashed 1, I can't not talk about Force Unleashed 2, which is not my favorite game. I'm gonna be paying brutally honest when I talk about Force Unleashed 2. Force Unleashed 2 was a pile of dank ferric.
Oh God.
I
think I got that for Christmas, and I beat it like the second day or something like that. I had it.
I will tell you,
like, it was short.
It's a short game to a point where I still remember when I got it. My cousin came to pick me up, and he was like, "I'm gonna take you to GameStop. You can get one game." And I got Force Unleashed 2. I came back and I beat it before he even left the house.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this so short? What is going on? And it was literally, there was a mission in Force Unleashed 2. I could probably put up the clip for people watching this on YouTube and it will be done before I even get the explanation out. It was a mission where literally all you did was walk to Yoda.
I love that mission so much.
What?
Because of how pointless it was.
Stupid. And I kid you not, if you never played Force Unleashed 2, I kid you not. When you get the option to replay missions, that's a mission that you can replay. Just you walking to Yoda on Dagobah. That's it. Cutscene starts and then he leaves. And it's like, do y'all realize how insulting that is to have a mission that's literally just walking in a straight line and then it's over?
Like, it's kind of at the height of the story too.
It's
like, that was the funny
it's
part.
climax. It's the climax because it's when he goes in there and he sees all the the Dagobah visions of that kind of show you what your future is, and he sees all these other clones of Starkiller that are reaching out to him. It's like, man, why is that a mission? Why is that just one sole mission? It didn't make any sense to me. And don't get me wrong, I hate that because Force Unleashed 2, it was so smooth. The gameplay and mechanics were on a whole nother level. It was
gameplay wise, it was
smooth.
So much better than the first. But
dude, Starkiller with dual wielding lightsabers, and he moved so fluid. It looked like it was mocap, and I don't think it was. It looked stunning, but the story just did not make up for it. And it was like, why am I doing this? Like, I remember I got back on it the other day and was scrolling because I was like, oh, I'm gonna just replay some missions, and you scroll through, and I'm like, these are all just basically like 3-4 missions. I'm not replaying this. And it was so sad. And then another thing. So one thing I also mentioned. So both the Force Unleashed games had DLC, and to kind of put it into question how little work went into Force Unleashed 2 versus Force Unleashed 1. Force Unleashed 1, the Ultimate Sith Edition, and then all the DLC. I think it was 3 DLCs. You had the Hoth DLC, the Tatooine DLC, and then the Jedi Temple DLC. And all those, and the 2 Hoth and Tatooine DLCs were tied together, and the Jedi Temple DLC was meant to be like a continuation of the main story of Force Unleashed. So for people who haven't played it, the explanation for those DLCs, so the Hoth and Tatooine DLCs were based off of the dark side ending that you get from the main game. So the dark side ending is where Starkiller chooses to give into his hatred of Vader and kill him, basically. And in response, Palpatine takes Starkiller as his new apprentice. So then the DLC starts up Tatooine. He's hunting for the droids that have the plans to the Death Star. And he ends up finding his way to Kenobi. And this is going to sound like the craziest explanation. But Starkiller...
It's a fever dream.
Starkiller ends up killing Ben Kenobi. And then attempts to take the droids. And in the process, Ben Kenobi comes back as a Force Spirit. And Starkiller fights the Force Spirit and then kills him again.
Double dead.
So I don't know if there's like a super Force Spirit. But Kenobi was gone 2 times in under 15 minutes. So, but the Falcon gets away. And then the Hoth DLC picks up Tatooine. It picks up, so basically, you can see episode 5, the Empire striking the Rebel secret base. Obviously, Vader's not there. Starkiller's there. He infiltrates the base in secret, fights Luke Skywalker, and essentially makes Luke Skywalker his apprentice. And Luke falls to the dark side. So that's where that DLC ended. There's no more DLCs for that game. So then, Force Unleashed 2, the DLC, singular, was Endor. And the Endor mission was weird because you play the perfect clone of Starkiller from the dark side ending of the main game in Force Unleashed 2. And then you proceed to fight through Endor. You kill Han Solo and you kill Chewbacca. And then you go up to the top of this forest array. And then you fight Leia, who has become a Jedi because Luke fell to the dark side. But the thing that made no sense to me is Luke falling to the dark side was a thing that happened in the original game with the original Starkiller that was not a clone. And that DLC implied...
I remember this ending now.
Yeah. And that DLC implied that Luke still fell to the dark side. But if that's the case, that means Vader turned him. Because if that's the case, this perfect clone of Starkiller was created by Vader. So Vader's still there. So if Vader turned Luke to the dark side, why does he still need Starkiller? It just didn't make sense. That game made no sense. Okay,
It really
the
did.
story was terrible. No, I also say that because the thing for Force Unleashed 2 that got on my nerves is they were always like, is he a clone or is he real? And then every time he would have that moral dilemma, the game would throw something in your face to say, hey, guess what? He a clone.
Yeah.
I'm like, then what's the point of this whole thing? Because you would have Rom Coda shouting up and down, you can't clone a boy, you can't clone a Jedi, boy. Dang, he said boy before Kratos. But
He did. Rom Coda was the first Kratos.
look at that. Rom Coda.
Actually, no, that's
No,
When
they
did,
existed at the same time. But
when-
Rom Coda was the first PS4 Kratos.
yeah. There you go.
Rom Coda's out here inspiring everybody. But he was like, you can't clone a Jedi, boy. And then like Starkiller's like, but I'm a clone, and I came from Camino, where he's cloning me. And it's like, what? Wait, what? And what I also hated is Juno was barely in the game. She went from being like this quintessential, like she's Starkiller's love interest. She piloted his ship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was our leader in the rebellion, and then they basically treated her like Rose Tico. Okay, they cut
Exactly.
her down to like one scene in that game. She got kidnapped
One
by
line.
Boba Fett, and that was it. And don't get me started on Boba Fett, because like you didn't even fight him.
And I love the lore reason for why you don't fight him either, because he, I'm pretty sure this is in the comics, the tie-in comics. So he realizes what the plans are for Camino and stuff, and that he's you know they're not really taking care of the clones too well, and he just goes, never mind, I'm out.
It's so dumb. It's like, why put Boba in the game? You don't even fight him. It's like I'm losing my mind because like in Force Unleashed, you literally fight Boba in that DLC and then you kill him.
Mhm.
And then in this one, he kidnaps your love or the original Starkiller's love interest. You save her, and he just dips. He's like, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. Goodbye. And I'm like, how y'all gonna rob me of a Boba Fett boss battle? And at the end of the game. And then also, another thing that made no sense. So the light and dark side endings should make sense, like on top of each other. Because the idea, because they're both endings, like even though they're both endings, they're both spanning off of everything that's still happening. So like, it's not like the world changes based on what ending you get. Or the world before it changed. Obviously, the world after it does change. But like the world before it is still the same timeline. So if you pick the light side ending, what happens is you essentially you don't give into your hatred of killing Vader, which is kind of funny how that was like the the critical choice at the end of both games. You don't give into your hatred to attempt to kill Vader. And instead, you realize what Rom Code is saying, that yeah, he's more valuable alive. So they capture Vader, which first off, no, no one's capturing Darth Vader. Just no. But
he wouldn't let it happen.
I don't care if he has no hands or not. No one's capturing Darth Vader. So, but they capture Vader, and then the last scene is Starkiller walks into the room, and it's like interrogating him, basically saying, "You tell him I'm a clone, tell him I'm not," all this kind of stuff. And Starkiller feels like he walks off, and then Vader gets the last word. It says, "As long as she lives, I will always control you." And then, which even like sure that line sounds cool, but in the gist of what we saw in this game, you used her like once or twice.
Exactly.
So it's like you no room to really say that. But he walks off, and that was the ending. And I was like, okay, that was stupid. And keep in mind, this game takes place 1 year before episode 4. So to logically say that Vader was captured 1 year before episode 4, you would feel like they would say that. Like, we had him before, right? If it happened like a year before it,
Yeah,
like you,
that'd be something I'd be bragging
yeah, like
about.
we had you once before or something like that. Like you keep like no, they didn't capture Vader. That was dumb. And then the dark side ending though, which just completely shatters the reality of the light side ending. So the dark side ending, he
Mhm.
does give into his hatred, but before he can swing, he gets stabbed in the back by who? Oh, Lord and behold, Vader lied to him the whole time. It's just like can't trust Vader, and he had a perfect clone of Starkiller the entire time. And this perfect clone of Starkiller then proceeds to kill Ram Koda and then force push a. I think like force push Ram Koda and a bunch of other rebels like off a platform
off the
into
Kaminoan platform.
just the raging waters below, which I think was a worse fate than getting killed with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then he just Vader gets up and it says, go kill more people. And then
Yeah. Like, all right, our work here's done. On to the next one.
And then he walks off, looks at the dead body of Juno Eclipse, and leaves. Here's where that ending is stupid. Even more stupid than the light side ending. One, if he had a perfect clone of Starkiller the whole time, how come the clone didn't show up when they captured Darth Vader?
Mm-hmm.
Two, how come Juno died right there, but she lived in the light side ending, even though the same thing just happened to her regardless?
It's like a weird, like Padme Force.
Exactly.
Healing
It's weird. It's so Force Unleashed 2. Don't get me wrong. I love Force Unleashed 1. It is my favorite game. But Force Unleashed 2 is a pile of hot garbage. And that is my 2 cents. Logan, what's your favorite Star Wars game?
Plain and simple. I like my old games and I like my RTSs.
Oh,
So I gotta say Empire at War.
See now
Because
now you're saying you think I was gonna say it. Now I see why. I would have said that if we were talking about RCS.
well, I thought because in the same way there's movie theater high, there might be like current game high where you're playing a game currently and
You
it's
thought I
like
was gonna
that's
say
like your
Survivor?
thing. I thought you might have said Survivor or Fallen Order.
That's understandable. I wouldn't say Survivor.
Yet.
I don't even know if I say yet because I like Survivor, but I don't think it's what's the way to put it. Which way to put it? It's up there. Don't get me wrong. It's up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's in top 3. But I would
Top three.
I still wouldn't put it above Force Unleashed for me personally.
Makes sense.
But
yeah,
explain Empire War and this
Empire at War. So if you don't know, RTS, real time strategy, means you're basically controlling the troops. You're basically you're the admiral or commander, depending on if you're playing a ground battle or a space battle. More than usually, you want to play the space battles. Ground battles can get a bit tiring because it's not like individual units or you're controlling huge platoons, so it's just you don't really get that much freedom in a ground war. Now, I will say there's a lot of mods that are still being made for this game that came out in 2006
and that's
that kind of help with the ground war aspect. But more than likely, you just want to do in orbit war, something having to do with the ships. And it is like 2006 ahead of its time. Like that it's crazy good, and especially with the mods now. Like I love the game on its own, but especially with the mods.
it's
Like the Thrawn's Revenge mod or it's so good, and it looks so good too, and it just makes me wonder why they haven't made a modern day RTS for Star Wars.
I feel like
that's my biggest concern, at least with that.
Because I feel
it
like
go over
it's
well.
like it's, and this is like off topic with Star Wars, but I feel like it's just because RTS is just like they've become so niche. Because RTS used to be the thing when it came to PC gaming.
Mm-hmm.
When PCs were like first burgeoning, RCS was the thing. And like you couldn't turn around without seeing an RCS game. But now I think like because I feel like for a while that was like the graphical peak Like if you could have all these moving pieces on the screen at the same time, you had a good PC. But now I think like now that the graphical peak for PCs has grown, RCS
Yeah.
has kind of taken a step back. But that's just my 2 cents on it. But you were saying,
Uh, but like I said, I love Empire at War. I also want to mention Jedi Starfighter because that game on
oh
its own
yeah,
is really really good. It's not really a story based game, but it's still pretty cool. In the way that it's a good game that takes place before. I'm pretty sure it was before episode 1. I think.
yeah, because it is.
Yeah. So it's just really cool to be playing in that era. And then also as a person that played on the PSP a lot, Star Wars Battlefront Elite
My
Squadron.
gosh, that was such a good game.
That was such a good,
Classic.
like, customization wise, it might be the best Star Wars game yet for just customization wise. And then also that's where they had the X1
X2, yeah.
X2 storyline, and talking about cloning a Jedi. It was just so cool. That's just my few. But like we said earlier, you said single player video games just for stories. What about multiplayer Star Wars games?
So
That's
that's where
where
this is where the conversation shifts and it gets interesting. So obviously it's going to be one of the battlefronts for me, whether it be the retro ones or the current ones.
as long as it's not EA Battlefront 1, I'm fine with that.
You didn't like Battlefront One?
I liked it, but not until the what update did
he
He
came
Who Shall
out
Not
in
Be
the
Named
Outer Rim
show
pack.
up?
I think he came out
Yeah,
with
not
Greedo.
until when the Outer Rim pack came in, I went out. That's
So for those who might have forgotten in this short time, Logan's favorite character, Nine and was DLC in the first Battlefront. Him and his grand old A280. Um,
I just hold on. I actually just looked up Nine Num to try to find where he popped up, and the description in the Star Wars databank literally starts out. It's like I wrote it or something. It says a jowled, mouse-eyed native of Solus. Nine Num
why
was
does
an
that
arms dealer
feel
and a
so
smuggler
negative?
who piloted the Mail Crawler.
The what crawler?
The Mail
What
Crawler,
is
which
the
I need to
Mel
look up what
crawler?
the
That sounds, it's like
uh,
MEL crawler.
MELL crawler. It's all one word too. Even his ship looks
Hold on, let me
disgusting.
see this. I'm looking it up. Ew!
Yeah,
That looks gross. I'm gonna flash it on the screen for anybody watching on YouTube.
jump scare warning. Be careful.
Okay, wait. Now I'm
Like
seeing
talk
like two
about it.
different pictures of it. One of them doesn't look bad, but the other one looks real. Like the other one. So I think we're looking at the same picture. This one
The
looks
the
like
first
a
picture,
giant ant.
yeah, and then the second one just kind of looks like a big bulky
It's like a
ship,
bulky
but
version
it's
of
it's
like
way
the
too
Spectre
bulky.
from Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's bulky like this. If it's the second one, it's ugly, but it's not like terrible.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at way too many pictures of Nine Num. I gotta close out of this
Don't worry,
tab.
I'm gonna send you more later. Okay.
I'm seeing red.
But when it comes to Battlefront, I would see. Here's my thing. I love the classics. Don't get me wrong. The classic LucasArts Battlefronts, they were great. But I grew up and well, I didn't grow up. I grew up with those, but we're modern gamers, so I'm gonna pick a modern. I'm not gonna go something classic. I'm the type of person where, depending on the type of game, especially when it comes to multiplayer games, I'm not too much of a nostalgist. I like
Mm-hmm.
to keep it current. So, truthfully, I have to go with Battlefront 2. But here's the thing. It's Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1. EA Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1. Um
Mm-hmm.
Both of those games, even though they're in the same series, they felt so distinctly different because they focused on different things, right? So I'm excusing the foobar that was the launch of Battlefront 2. I'm excusing that because I feel like
Yeah.
that's just it's important to talk about it, but in the gist of my favorite, I'm pretty sure everybody else will understand. Once we get past that, Battlefront 2 is great. Um, so that's my starting point when I talk about Battlefront 2. But Battlefront 2 had the luxury of it was focusing on multiple eras, you know. So when you have the clone, and it was great, but it was also a crutch in a way, if that makes sense. And it'll make more sense once I explain Battlefront 1. So Battlefront 2, you had Clone Wars, you had the Galactic Civil War, then you had the New War with the First Order and Resistance. So you get
Hmm.
into those eras. There's only so much that they can put in the game. You can't put a limited amount of stuff in the game. So there's only so much they can put. So in that regard, there's only so much they can put from each era. So there's only so many
Yeah.
blasters they can put. There's only so many skins they can put, so on and so forth. But when you do what they did with the first Battlefront, EA, where you focus on a particular era. So the first Battlefront, we focus solely on the Galactic Civil Conflict, right? So you have a lot more you can do with that era. Means you can expand. It's like you're opening a door and walking solely into that era. So you can put a lot more blasters from that era. You can put a lot more maps from that era. You can put just a lot more game modes that can fit in that era. So when you do that, sure it's one era, but because you put so much, it feels really full because you can focus solely on that. So everything that you
Hmm.
put is so like for instance when you look at Battlefront 2, the blasters felt so limited. Why? Because they could only put two blasters from each era in each class. So you had like the DC-15 as the base if you're playing Clone Wars, and you had DC-15 LE for like the interchangeable one. You had like TL-50 for the Imperial era. You had that FWB for the First Order era. So you had all those. You had all those. So it was like one blaster per era, basically. And with Battlefront 1, you had RT-97C, you had the DLT, you had the Releby, you
Hmm.
had the DL-44, you had Greedo's blaster, you had all these blasters, you had the bow rifle, you had all these other blasters come into play because they're all in this era, so you can blow up all the blasters that were using the era. So,
Yeah.
um, so truthfully, it can bounce between either one. Only reason I will pick Battlefront 2 over Battlefront 1 is because, and it's not Battlefront 1's fault, it's just because the game's dead. Because when I tell you,
Hmm.
when Battlefront 2 came out, I've never seen a game leave the previous game in the series so quickly and go over to the next one. I mean, Battlefront 1 died the second Battlefront 2 came out. And then even with the struggles of Battlefront 2 launch, no one went back. And it
Yeah.
hurt my feelings. So I was like, dang, this game just died so quick. And I hate that because Battlefront 1 was a great game. Great maps.
Because they realized Nine Numb wasn't it.
People like Nine of them and
Name one people.
you.
All
And
right, so that's it. You're gonna have to find a new co-host for Protocol 13. I can't take this kind of disrespect.
You love Nine of them. I mean, we both know this. There's no
No, but
denying
you know what I do love?
it.
Talk about transitions.
What? We got a segue?
Star Wars Squadrons. Star
Oh,
Wars
yes.
Squadrons. It had a rough rocky start, kind of. Or well, no,
I
I
think
feel like it
I
kind
think
of it kind
Squadrons
of was
had
a
a I think
baseline.
Squadrons had like a pretty decent run. I feel like the only reason Squadrons didn't blow up is it was a very niche uh genre.
It was a very niche genre. Like the it was super small too.
Yeah, because it was a small campaign. I think what like 5 maps for
Yeah,
most of
like, there
it.
was like five or six maps, and the like the smaller maps that were used just for starfighter battles were just sections of the
Yeah,
six larger maps.
and not I think what
But
2 game modes, 2 or 3.
yeah, only
Yeah.
two maybe three.
So it was a small game. It was a niche game, but it wasn't a
But
triple A title.
it won my
Yeah,
heart.
it wasn't a triple A title. So that's one thing to say because I think it launched was like with 39.99, 49.99. 49.
Yeah, it was 40. It
Yeah,
was only
so it
40.
wasn't a AAA title. So it wasn't going to be like a Battlefront 2 level game where you had
Hmm.
all these other modes, but because we all played it for a while and we had a lot of fun playing it.
Yeah. I've really liked I mean I like flying games in where I have the option to fly, and especially if I have the option to fly like an X-wing or an A-wing even, and all the ships felt like they felt fast, or if you were in a Y-wing, or if you decided to choose it for whatever reason, a B-wing, you felt clunky and slow. Which, for the folks out there, if there's one thing I hate more than Nine Num, it's the B-wing.
Ow!
Whatever.
Wow!
A lot of, yeah, this is like
Hot
Nine
take.
Num. People are like, okay, buddy. People are like, when I say I hate Nine Num, they're like, okay, buddy, that's funny. But when I say I hate the B Wing, I am escorted out of Galaxy's Edge. Like, it
That
is,
is.
it is a, it's a. I just don't get it.
It's a weird fighter.
Like,
I'll
I
admit
love.
the vertical landing is weird. Horizontal
Do you
landing.
know how good of a pilot you need to be to fly that ship?
Harrison Dula.
Harrison Dula is the
Just
only one
saying.
I can understand. The only one I can understand flying said ship, because I don't see how you can easily.
Also, what way is the ship supposed to? Now that I really think about it, what way are you supposed to fly it? It's like is it like supposed to be like a
So the for general cruising, the cockpit should be on the top with the
with the long
with
fin
the
at the
rest of the
bottom?
ship down. Yeah, with the long fin on the
Okay.
bottom. And then you're supposed to move it around for when you're flying and stuff. And I just feel like
That is a terrible design.
that's a
That's
lot.
a
It's a
that
lot.
is a terrible
But
design.
I thank it for being, it's a bunker buster. They needed it. It can take out a ship, and like it could probably take out a star destroyer without shields and give it like 5 hits and it's done.
Yeah.
Because they have the B beam. But other than that, it's too much anxiety worrying about, am I gonna hit this? Am I gonna hit this? It's like putting some everyday Subaru driver in an 18 wheeler hauling 15 horses in the back, like and then telling them, hey, make this corner down this busy
First
alleyway.
off, did you
Like, that's how
did
driving
you
it
just
is.
diss Subaru drivers?
That was the first car I could think of. I'm sorry if any listeners are driving a Subaru, but don't go driving any 18 wheelers with 15 horses in the back
I'm
anytime
dead
soon,
certain
please.
unless they are in the state of Florida or Texas that will never a situation that situation will never arise.
Well,
Just say, imagine if you're driving from Florida to Texas in an 18 wheeler full of horses.
and you have 2 turns to make.
just one, just one solid straight. Is it actually one just solid straight shoot? It might be. This is
It could be. I mean, we have a lot of different highways and interstates down here, so we could probably
this is gonna be a discussion we'll have off podcast.
off podcast. Yeah.
Off the thing with houses, but regardless, we're actually. I feel like we should wrap it up here. Just a second. We have been recording for quite some time. So in that regard, let's talk about one more thing. One more favorite thing about, as we mentioned in previous episodes before, and in this conversation a little bit, we are readers, Star Wars, mediums. We like to read books, novels, comic books. I don't know why I'm talking like this. Ask this question. I feel like I should be
You
like,
mentioned books, and he thinks he's better than everybody
I
else.
am an elitist. This is how
This is how Nine Num acts, guys.
So I have to ask you different. What would be your favorite novel or comic book you've read that is centered around a galaxy far, far away?
That's tough. I mean, I can't not mention the Charles Soule Darth Vader comic run.
I've heard a lot about
Charles Soule is also, he writes novels as well. I'm pretty
that. He's
sure.
done some of the High Republic. He did Light of the Jedi.
Yeah,
For High Republic.
yeah. So and he's done a Kylo Ren comic. It seems like that's what at least Google's telling me. So yeah, no, he did Rise of Kylo Ren, which is I'm pretty sure that's
I think we've talked about that comic.
Yeah.
That's
And Star Wars Obi-Wan and Anakin, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did the Star Wars Lando novel. So he's really,
he's got some traction.
he's trusted. He's in that little pool of writers and directors that we constantly joke about, that Disney just keeps on picking out of because they know they're good.
It's him, but you know who's like number one? Claudia Gray.
Who? Oh
She
yeah,
writes,
definitely.
like everything.
Book mom.
So yeah,
Star Wars book
Claudia
mom.
Gray.
But yeah, his Darth Vader run's really, really good. But also like they've had an event going on in Star Wars comics called War of the Bounty Hunters for the longest time, and all of those have been solid too. They're all searching for Han Solo, because I guess at some point they just lose Han Solo frozen in carbonite for a little bit. And I'm pretty sure in that yeah, it's weird, but in that Dirge comes to canon. Dirge, the bounty hunter.
Yeah, now I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he comes to canon in a Dr. Aphra book.
Because you know, Doc. Afra's
Which
like...
I will say, another good thing about comics, Dr. Aphra. She's a really, really cool character.
She's really coming
she is. I'm waiting for the day where she shows up in a live action series. Like I'm ooh, hold on.
He just had a revelation, guys.
All right, think about it. Ahsoka trailer. They're on some type of like temple or something. There's archaeological equipment in the background.
Do you think Aphra's there?
She's an archaeologist.
Ooh.
What if?
I mean,
that's all I'm saying.
She's ex-Imperial.
She is ex-Imperial.
So
ex-friend of Vader. One of very few friends of Vader.
So it could be the case that like maybe she has connections with Thrawn, or maybe she thinks that Aphra has connections with Thrawn. She's, like I said, she was a Vader confidant. I don't want to say a confidant of Vader's, but you know, she was in Vader's circle. She was in Vader's circle long enough to not feel the wrath of Vader.
Even if it doesn't happen, I in Ahsoka at least, I would love for it to happen at some point.
Because honestly, like I feel like Aphra's the Ahsoka of the written aspect of Star Wars.
Yeah, I would agree with that. She's a very popular written character, and we haven't gotten her whole story yet. Yeah. You know, we haven't gotten an ending. We haven't gotten a lot of middle. We don't even know what the middle is technically, because she could live on forever. You know, we don't know. So, but I will say my favorite Star Wars written thing would probably have to be High Republic Light of the Jedi, just because reading it for the first time, I remember exactly what happened. I was listening to a random Star Wars playlist while reading it for the first time, and this is gonna be spoilers, but I'm pretty sure we're out of spoiler
We're at phase 1
territory anyway. We're almost in phase 3. So but when the hyperspace event happens, the Great Emergence, and and everything starts going horribly wrong all across the galaxy. I remember exactly because what is the song when Anakin's looking outside the window in episode 3, and it's like the super
Battle Man's Formations?
Yes, that song was playing when that when that part of the book, and I was terrified because and I exactly, and it was like I don't think a book has ever made me feel like that.
Also, Charles Soule has a great way with words, and the way he wrote Avar Christmas, I loved it.
The Force being like music.
Yes.
It's so good.
I love A.R. Chris.
It makes you feel so like it makes it feel so relatable, you
And this is
know.
a new way to see the Force because I don't think we've ever like we always see people see the Force. It's like, oh, it's a being that flows through us, yada, yada. But like to see someone who sees it as not like a being, but like
Mm-hmm.
the just for lack of a better word, for like a force. She sees the Force as a force of something else, of like music. So
Yeah.
that's cool, and I think I applaud Charles Soule in writing this.
And while we're on uh, Charles Soule and really really good writing, um I think it was Into the Dark. One of my favorite
Into the Darkest.
moments
I don't
in
think that's Charles Soule.
it wasn't
Yeah,
Charles Soule, it was Claudia
yeah.
Gray. And one of my favorite moments is when Reith Silas, also spoilers for Into the Dark if you plan on reading it. Reith Silas finds out that his master is gone, and it's a perfect moment. I forget exactly what I wish I could pull it up what happens all in that
I
moment,
think
but
he
it
wasn't it the one.
describes him
Yeah,
freaking out so
because wasn't
well.
it his master got like it was like an attack on the station, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the master died on the attack from the
yeah.
station. Also, there may or may not be a train
I can
coming
faintly
by.
hear it, but we're good. We're good. But yeah, I I will say this is what's gonna be my favorite Star Wars novel. A little bit different. Don't get me wrong. I love the Harry Potter stuff, and everybody's heard me talk about the Aftermath trilogy as well a lot, and deservedly so because the Aftermath trilogy is amazing. But number one novel for me, if you guys haven't read it, I highly suggest you do. I'm gonna pull it right next to me right now. There's this novel that came out a while ago that celebrates a film and the 40 years that it existed. They've done it for all of them now. Well, Return of the Jedi is not out yet, but it's coming. But the first one, from a certain point of view, for A New Hope, I think was probably my favorite read. Because, yeah, they did one for Empire Strikes Back, and Empire's my favorite movie. But I haven't finished it.
Mm-hmm.
And from a certain point of view, for A New Hope, it's really cool to see a lot of the background stories that we've seen. We talk about like background characters and giving them a voice sometimes. A novel that's strictly dedicated to that in Star Wars. It's interesting because we've gotten novelizations of films before, and I feel like novelizations of films they're cool, but we know what happened because we saw the film. And yeah, you can get
Yeah.
like a little bit more information here and there, or sometimes it might include like a deleted scene in the novelization or something like that. But like I said, we've seen it all, and even some of the stuff that they add on, we can still kind of infer that from what we see. So what makes it interesting is when you tell stories about people that we wouldn't think about. So you tell the story about the two twins you see in the bar during the cantina scene. You tell a story about the Dianoga, and that's like probably my favorite story from this is the Dianoga. You get to find out that she's actually and and not only that, but she was placed in the Death Star trash compactor on purpose. She wasn't actually like picked up with random trash. So the Empire actually purposely went out and got her because her species are good at breaking down trash. And she tried to escape too. Not only when she tried to escape, and she also killed like two stormtroopers trying to escape. So she got some kills. She can put a teardrop on her face if she wanted to. I'm just saying. So that. But I will give an honorable mention. I'm also put this book next to me as I make this honorable mention. So if you guys have ever read the book, who wrote this actually? Ken Liu wrote this one. It's not a uber serious book, but it's a fun read, and that's why I guess an honorable mention. It was one of the build ups to the Journey to the Last Skywalker. So I don't know if you remember this, but Last Skywalker had a lot of Journey 2 books. I got I think about 2 or 3 of them. This one proved to be my favorite. So one of them is the Leia book written by Claudia Gray again. But this one,
Always.
The Legends of Luke Skywalker, was just an insanely fun read because essentially what the book is it's set in like a cantina, and a lot of people are telling these stories that they've heard about Luke Skywalker over the years. Some of them real, some of them fake, and the kicker of this whole thing is there's a man at this bar who is hearing these stories and reacting to them, and you find out at the end that it is Luke Skywalker, and he's sitting here, taking in all these stories, and it feels like something Mark Hamill would actually do. Truthfully,
Yeah.
as he's sitting here and listening to all these stories about him and reacting. And when I tell you, it's funny because some of these stories are so outlandish. Like, there's one story where this woman who claims to have worked for the Empire, she says she went to like the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, so she's trying to give herself like all these high credits. And she claims that Luke Skywalker wasn't Luke Skywalker, that his real name was Luke Plotter, and that him, Obi-Wan, Han, and Chewie weren't really who they said they were, and that they were just really a band of criminals, and that the rebellion hired them because the rebellion needed a win because they were losing a lot. And the fact she also claimed that so this is an intricate story. So she claimed the Death Star was fake, and the Death Star was never real. So, and even though it blew up Alderaan, she said the reason you couldn't trust that, and it's actually a joke on the special edition of Star Wars that came out in the 90s, is she said, so as we know in the original version of episode 4 of just Star Wars, when Alderaan blew up, it just blew up. And if you know, in the special edition, for some reason they added a ring to the explosion of Alderaan blowing up. I guess because they wanted it to look more scientifically real. I don't know. But in
scientifically real, like we're blowing up planets on a daily basis.
It's a thing. But in the canon, like in his novel, she uses that as proof the Death Star was fake. She was like, "There's 2 footages of Alderaan blowing up, one with no ring, one without a ring, or one with a ring. So why would there be 2 different footages of the planet blowing up if it's real?" Kind of deal. So I was like, okay, that's hilarious. So she said the Death Star is fake for that reason, and she said the reason. And also, so as you know, a whole planet of people blew up. So she's like, people are like, you can't say the Death Star is fake. That's kind of disrespecting everybody who did die or people who lost people in Alderaan. So she said how the Empire blew it up was they used a bunch of precision proton torpedo shots to the tectonic plates of Alderaan that caused the planet's destruction. So she has this whole story, and then she proceeds to say that the rebellion actually arrested Luke Plotter and the gang, but they offered to help the rebellion because they said, "Hey, we know you guys need a win against the Empire because y'all aren't doing too good. We know they are touting that they have a Death Star that can blow up planets. So how about we come up with a story that says we blew up the Death Star?" So basically, the rebels came up with a story to destroy a fake station, and since it was fake, the Empire can't just outright say it didn't happen, because then they would get caught in a lie saying that they didn't have a Death Star. So the Empire couldn't really fight the propaganda of the Death Star blowing up, because again, if they said that they didn't have a Death Star, everybody would be like, then y'all lied about having a planet killer.
Yeah. So
it was a thing of like, oh, so they kind of can't stop us from doing it. So they come up with this huge convoluted story. They come up with the lie that Ben Kenobi died fighting Vader, so then the real Ben Kenobi could just retire and dip and not have to worry about anything. They staged a fake battle, and like when I tell you this is an intricate story, the way she tells it is even rebels that were on the base on Yavin didn't know that it was fake. So the way they said there was a select group of rebels that knew they were faking it, and they would fly into space and just randomly fly around to make it look like they were in the middle of a dogfight on the ground. So rebels that were on the ground who would be looking at like a star chart of all their fighters would see them flying around and dissipating and yada yada because they would just turn off the sensors. I'm assuming, and so yeah, and all the while she's having this explanation, Luke Skywalker is sitting at the table right across from her, and she has no clue. So yeah, this is why
I like how that basically just means Alderaan is like the moon landing of the Star Wars
basically
universe.
it basically is. That's actually the perfect perfect simile for that. Alderaan is the moon landing for some people. So yeah, that is my honorable mention. If we get one, is The Legends of Luke Skywalker. And it's also got a beautiful.
I might have to pick up that book.
It's worth it. It's fun. I think how many pages is I'm holding it here. It is 425 pages of sweetness.
Of sweetness.
Sweetness. It's the sweet one.
Is each story like divvied up, or is it?
So and like I said, it's so some stories you can tell are fake because they're just too outlandish, and then some stories is kind of like in the middle, and then some stories are like you can tell they were true. So actually, there's one story I remember too that's actually tells the story of how Luke's hand. So as you know, Luke had a synthetic hand, and it had synthetic skin. That's the most important thing about it. But when we saw him in Last Jedi, the skin was gone. Oh, when Force Awakens, the skin on his hand was gone. Actually, yeah. So they have a story that tells why his hand lost the synthetic skin to it.
So just explain.
Yeah, right. Then they had a story about how he found the map to the planet from the Battlefront 2 campaign. I had a story about I can't remember the name of it. Pilio. Yeah. I have a story about how he found the map to Pilio.
That's
so yeah. Cool. So there's a lot of tiny.
Which real quick before we close out. Favorite planet, just
Star Wars
just like
planet?
let's just like speed run some things. Like we'll do favorite planet. Just go through.
I think because
mine might be Pilio. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty cool.
We had earlier, I think mine would be Bespin.
Yeah. Bespin, that makes sense. Favorite species.
Chiss.
Like alien species. Chiss.
It's the Thrawn, the eyes, man. The eyes.
The eye. That's true. I don't know. I've been into Quarrens recently. Not like that though. Not like that.
I don't think you're getting.
They're really cool. Like in this Star Wars tabletop RPG thing that I have, it gives them an inking ability that they could use like once per battle, like where they spit out ink. Did one?
They did.
I don't know. Maybe it's I didn't know if it was like a real thing or not, but I'd say
there's been a lot of corns in Mando. Somebody in Mando loves corns.
What about like random like non sentient species, I guess, or non
droid
humanoid? No, not droid. We'll go droid next.
Species.
But like animal, like animalia, I guess.
Oh, Nackley.
I gotta say those little crystal fox things.
Those were adorable.
They're cute. They're cute. I need one. And then since you said it, let's go ahead and do droid.
Chopper.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody's favorite war criminal.
Chopper. If you don't love Chopper, get out of my face, because it's Chopper. All day.
I'm gonna spend so much money when that Chopper animatronic figure comes out. And all it's gonna do is just sit on my desk all pretty and stuff. But
talk to
it's Chopper,
point.
so if it's a talk back, I'm gonna have it just so it doesn't move around. But I'm gonna hook up my Amazon Echo to it.
Okay, what else? Let me ask you this: favorite Jedi?
Ooh, probably. My go-to is always Plo Koon.
You and Dave Filoni.
Man, and it's so funny. My father hates Dave Filoni, which I'm gonna go ahead because my father says he's listened once or twice to the podcast. So I'm gonna call it out right now if he is. This man is the biggest lover of Dave Filoni ever. He agrees with every story decision Dave Filoni has made, from Avatar: The Last Airbender all the way up to Mandalorian season 3. If you want Dave Filoni fun facts, he's got them. All right. So that's the one shout out. What about you? What about you for Jedi?
I just want to mention one. This is gonna be the last time Logan's on because his father's gonna kill him. But
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I think my favorite Jedi would have to be Emo Gunda. I'm kidding.
Oh my! I totally forgot about him.
But I think my favorite Jedi would probably be Qui-Gon Jinn. Something about Qui-Gon.
That's fair.
Something about Qui-Gon.
He's super cool.
My favorite Sith Lord, including Legend.
Maul. I gotta say Maul.
Good. I think
he's just.
I gotta say Maul too. This is Maul.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a tremendous story. You can't.
And then go ahead. I'll ask you favorite just like side character.
Hondo Onaka.
Or Glup as we called him yesterday. Oh, Hondo, yeah. Hondo definitely.
Hondo mother freaking Onaka, people.
He's so cool. I still gotta take you to Galaxy's Edge so we can see him.
That's my homie. That's the best. I love that guy so much. Gosh. But yeah, I feel like that is that's a good Star Wars Day episode. It's going to be a pain to edit this episode because I have to edit it. So guys, we're recording this May 2nd. And I have to record this on the 3rd and then make sure it's ready by the 4th. So and it's already 2 hours. So if I wrap this up kind of quickly, you know why. But we are really thankful for you guys who have been watching so far. We gave you 2 episodes this week out of nowhere. So you guys have 3 hours of our conversations to shift through. So good luck.
Ooh, that's a long car ride.
Good luck. If you're going to Galaxy's Edge, play us. If you're not going to Galaxy's Edge, still play us because we appreciate it either way it goes. But with that being said, we're gonna do a little plugging because this is what you do at the end of episodes. You plug stuff for some reason.
Oh my God, my lamp turns on.
That's such a random statement. Okay.
Well, because I just plugged it.
Well, that's gonna be about it. Guys, thanks you guys for tuning in. Logan, you got. Well, we're not. I don't know if we should plug stuff. This is the Star Wars. This is a surprise episode.
Yeah, this is. You know what we're plugging? Return of the Jedi in theaters today only. Go right now. Go watch it.
Not an ad. Cause I ain't finna get slapped with nothing for that.
Oh yeah, true. Not an ad.
But also, yeah, go see Return of the Jedi. It's in theaters. Star Wars Day, guys. Happy Star Wars Day to everybody. It's been a grand time discussing. And yeah, we will see you guys probably in the week after next. We're going bi-weekly. This is a bi-weekly podcast. I don't know if we've mentioned that yet, but this is a bi-weekly podcast. So we'll see you guys in a week's time, I think. Or week after the next. One of the two. We'll see you guys then.
It'll be 2 weeks.
2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we will see you again.
Week and a half.
We will see you sometime in the future. It's been a grand old time. And yeah. Oh, I will plug this. I should plug this. The latest episode of Star Wars Altered History is available on the YouTube page as well. So if you want to enjoy that, please go ahead and do so. Now, we are ending it. So, with that being said, may the force of others be with you.